Hi, Paul. Hi, Paul Gorney from Luxury Living in Chicago, taking a look at the pros and cons of Glenview, Illinois, ranked by niche.com as one of the best places to live in the state of Illinois. Glenview is a much more affordable option than Wilmette or Winnetka, areas closer to the lake. So that's a pro. A con is it's further away, so you have to drive anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes or maybe a little bit more to get to the lakefront, to go sailing or get to the beach or things like this. However, Glenview has a median sales price of between $400,000 and $500,000, whereas Winnetka is over $1 million. Well, Matt is over $700,000. So there's a lot more affordable housing in Glenview. Glenview is also twice the size of Wilmette, 4 times the size of Winnetka. So it's a larger suburb. It has more retail, more of a tax base, and it has more housing options that are affordable under $700,000, where it's very difficult to find a house at that level in Winnetka or Wilmette that has the amenities, the size, the land that Glenview has. So keep Glenview in mind. Many people do when they're coming from out of town, a lower priced housing market, or they just need more space than what you can get closer to the lake. So Glenview has excellent schools, big pro. Has one section of the suburb that the schools are not that great in comparison. But if you stay out of that one section, the rest of the suburb of Glenview has great high school, great middle schools, great elementary schools, fairly highly ranked by niche.com. So these are things to keep in mind. The other thing in Glenview is it's a little bit different. Some areas of Glenview, there's a small part that's unincorporated, but even in the incorporated parts, there's areas that do not have sidewalks. So it really kind of drives people crazy because kids can't ride their bikes. They can't hang out in the neighborhood. They can't, go around the block, things like that. I mean, you have to ride in the street, which is obviously not optimal. And these are things that, kind of drive people nuts in some sections of Glenview. Kind of tied to the housing market a little bit, the pricing. The pricing is a little bit more favorable sometimes in the areas that do not have sidewalks. So it looks great, but it's a big pain in the neck that kids can't, get in there and ride around the block. The other thing in Glenview is it has the Glen, which is a former Naval Air Station, which has tons of retail. It has townhomes, loft apartments, moderate size homes, and then very large homes that are along the golf course. It also has a golf course where you can have brunch and a restaurant and things like this. So Glenview has the golf course, as I said. The other big advantage to Glenview is compared to areas closer to the lakefront is it has a tremendous park district. I mean, really great. Part of it is there's a lot more people living in Glenview. However, there's multiple pools, big sledding hills, huge parks for soccer, things like this. I mean, much more substantial parks. And it has a brand new, enormous, beautiful library in the downtown area. So Glenview has some pretty serious options, including new schools in the Glen. When that was developed, they built some beautiful new schools and a community center, which has great workout facilities. I think 8 or 10 basketball courts, a pool, a kids pool, great classes, all these things. So Glenview has some great advantages. However, as I mentioned, some of the things in Glenview are not, they just don't feel the same. The streets are in many parts of Glenview, it's more subdivisions, like popped in that were built in the 60s, 70s, kind of like subsections of Glenview where there's not really anything to walk to. There's no stores. You can't walk to the lake, things like this. So there is a difference, but you do get more for your money, larger, nicer houses with bigger lots. You just have to drive a little bit. The other thing with Glenview is you have a forest preserve, which miles of biking, running trails, horse trails. I mean, it's really beautiful, quite beautiful. And that's really a huge advantage to have there. However, on the flip side, it's just not as cozy. It's not as much like character and coziness and kind of old school kind of feeling with cobblestone streets and things like that. It's a little bit different, a little bit newer, more spread out, drive to things, more of what I would classify as like a typical suburb, rather than like a more of a more traditional, older, established suburb. So one thing Glenview does have that nobody else has close to it is the Wagner Farm. So the Wagner family had a farm on Lake Avenue in the middle of Glenview. They have cows, pigs, chickens. They have events. They've built a separate barn where they have kids' parties. They have 4-H club where kids, can show the animals. People actually have their animals there, like keeping them at the Wagner Farm. They take care of them. They go every weekend. I mean, it's really great. Kids growing up in Chicago, kids growing up in the suburbs typically do not have access to farm animals. So this is a pretty unique opportunity. I did just have a client move in from Carmel, Indiana, and they moved right down the street from the farm. What they needed is an acre or more of land, which you're just not going to get for any sort of reasonable price closer to the lake. So they got that. They got a big house on an acre of land for just over $2 million, which closer to the lake could cost you, $6, $7, $8 million. So a substantial house and property to entertain with. They do a lot of entertaining with their job, and they got that in Glenview. So, that's what they wanted. That was their priority. And many times that's what people want when they go to Glenview. That's their priority. They get the land, the bigger house that they can afford rather than paying such a premium being closer to the lake. So all great things to keep in mind. Call, text, email anytime you have any questions about Glenview. No question is too small. Help you anytime with anything you need.